Hey everybody, welcome to the latest episode of The Rock Experience with Mike Brunn. On this episode, Vincent LaRusso and I will be discussing the official announcement that came out yesterday from Motley Crue stating that Mick would no longer be touring with the band. We had heard rumors about this for a few weeks, so it didn't come as a major surprise, but we're going to give you our thoughts and our comments about this. We will also look forward to hearing what you have to say. Alrighty, lots to cover in this episode. Let's jump in. Let's get started. Hey everybody, welcome to the latest episode of The Rock Experience with Mike Brunn. Today I'm excited to have with me my buddy, my partner in crime,
Hello.
the chemist, Mr.
Hola.
Vincent LaRusso. How you doing, buddy?
Good. And I'm doing very well on this Thursday morning.
Excellent. So I know we have in the past done episodes like this where we talk about a musician, and usually it's a sad thing because they've passed. And I was thinking about that this morning, that this is a little bit different for us. You know, yesterday, Motley Crue announced that officially, finally, that Mick wasn't going to be touring with them anymore. And I was like, well, this will be nice because we could actually just talk about and celebrate somebody for once without them actually having passed. So it's a little bit different for us. I was thinking about that a little bit, but for anybody watching and maybe didn't know the backstory, I know over the last couple of weeks, if you read any of the rock tabloids, there was a lot of rumors that Mick was no longer going to be playing with Motley Crue, and the rumor was that John 5 was going to be replacing him. And at least on my Facebook page, I've held back from posting anything about it because I hate spreading rumors. And, a lot of times rumors are just that, they're rumors, and then they turn out not to be true.
It's also a Fleetwood Mac album.
Again. It's also a very good Fleetwood Mac album. Absolutely. One of the best albums of the 70s, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But, this one, I think you and I were talking about this a couple of weeks ago. This one, I just had a feeling might be true going back a few weeks ago, because I know Nikki Sixx is very active on Twitter, and he was silent on this when it was all over the place and all the different rock tabloids. And then I know a few people who are very good friends with John 5. When I say good friends, I mean like goes to their house, his house, he goes to their house, etc. And those guys were silent. And I was just like, all right, there's probably some truth behind this, even though the John 5 thing has not been announced, but at least not officially. But I held back. But yesterday when I read it, and I was like, wow, all right, this is it. This is real. It's official. Mick Mars is not going to tour with them. At first, I felt a little sad because, the guy has been through a lot. But then, my first thought was like, what respect I have for this guy. It's been obvious for 20 plus years, this guy's been in a lot of pain. He's got a spine disease. I don't even know how to pronounce it, so I'm not even going to try to pronounce it. But it's obvious when he's on stage, this man's in a lot of pain, and he's done it for decades. And so after reading it and feeling sad that, hey, he's not going to tour, I felt kind of like happy in a way, like, hey, good for him. He deserves to now hopefully not feel that pressure of having to tour. And I know Motley Crue hadn't toured for the last few years, but it's got to be probably a relief for him. But what was your thoughts at first when you heard it was official? I know you had a little bit of a busy day yesterday, but what were your thoughts when you first heard about it?
I guess I was sort of expecting it based on all the things and the rumors that were going on. And quite honestly, knowing what he has, and thank you for not asking me to pronounce what it is.
I don't even know how to do that.
Right.
I should get my brother on, the doctor and the pharmacist in the family. They'll be able to explain that better.
Exactly. But I kind of was expecting it at some point, knowing what it is and reading all about the disease and all the pain, like you said, that he's endured. And it gets worse and worse and worse and worse. It's not like it kind of seems like it gets to a point where it stops. And it's hard, playing on stage, and especially, having a guitar around your neck, and I've seen some videos of him live, and you could see, and as any of the artists get older, they don't quite move as much as they do. And, even like someone like Paul Stanley, who was, arguably one of the greatest frontmen ever. You watch him in the 70s and you watch him now, like he's still doing his like little Paul Stanley thing, a la, Bruce Kulick, you know what I mean? But,
Yeah.
maybe up amped a little bit,
Uh-huh.
but it's not the same. I mean, but these guys, look, Paul's what, 70 years old now.
Yep.
And I don't know how old Mick is. I know he's younger than
71
Paul.
years old. He'll
Oh,
be, I think
he's actually older.
he's
That's
older.
right,
I,
because
I think he'll be
he was
72 in the spring sometime.
that's right. He was always much older than, I think, like when they were in the early 20s, he was like 30 years old already. Like,
Right. You're
when
saying the
when
guys in
joined
Crue. Yeah, he was older than the
Crew.
guys in Crue.
Yes,
Yep.
yes, yes. But, the one thing I liked or loved about the not press conference, the press statement, was that he's still a member of Motley Crue. So if there's going to be any more recordings or stuff like that, it sounds like he'll participate in that stuff. And I just thought that was a really good way to make that known up
Yeah.
front. He's still a member of Motley Crue. He's just, is not going to be a touring musician with the band. And the thing is, and this is the most important thing, whoever is going to be the guitar player, is going to be John Five, whatever, he's still going to be playing the riffs that Mick created and try to capture the essence of who Mick Mars is. And really, I know a lot of guitar players, and I have friends of mine who have said, he's not a great guitar player, he's whatever. And like, he's never been compared to like the Eddie Van Halens of the world, or, the Joe Satriani's of that. But I've argued with them, but, there's only one Mick Mars, kind of like, again, when you hear him, it's Mick Mars and not another guitar player.
Well, let me pause you there for a moment, right? So, because we've
Yeah.
spoke on this show, and a lot of people now that watch know that you're in the Kiss cover band Unmasked. What
Yeah.
they may not know or may not remember is prior to that, for a few years, you spent some time in a Motley Crue tribute band, not as the bass player in that case, as the drummer, right? So,
Right.
and you did that for a couple of years, right?
Like 2.5 years.
2.5 years.
Yeah.
So, so you obviously knew those songs in and out because you were playing them on a regular basis. Did it give you, being in that band, did it give you a greater appreciation for the guitar licks? Because I think growing up, we both liked Motley Crue, but I don't think Motley Crue was in your top 5 bands ever. But being in that tribute band, did it give you a better appreciation for the guitar licks and what Mick Mars brought to the table?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, something like, 10 Seconds to Love, like the way that song opens up with the guitar tone, his tone, the feel of the riffs, Dr. Feel Good, you know what I mean? I thought it was very different from the metal that we grew up. I never listened to Motley Crue and thought like, oh, this is derivative of this guitar player or this band. Right. I really thought they kind of stood on their own in a lot of ways. And even from a standpoint of, guitar solos, I always thought like, again, he had his own style. And I think I had read that Mick, was kind of like a blues based guitar player, and was never, I remember back in the day, again, oh, he's not doing the 2-hand tapping thing. He's not one of those guys.
Right.
And it was like criticized for that. But hey, listen, he stood to what he was and he wanted to be himself. And, and that was to power through in that era and still be a top band and have, songs off like the Girls. I mean, just I'm talking about where it really started to hit its stride, the heavy metal scene, and everybody was trying to be like the next Eddie Van Halen.
Right.
If you look at when Shout at the Devil came out, which is what, 83? Is
83.
That
Yep.
Right? 83. That's when it was really with the Def Leppards and the Quiet Riots, and those bands started to usher in. And then, Theater of Pain was like 85, right? If I'm around right. Girls, what, 87?
87, I think it was,
yeah, right. Oh, I'm on fire now, right?
You're on fire.
And so yeah, exactly. So, but they became more and more successful as a band. It's you can't argue against that. They were one of the top bands, and that music today still stands very strong. Hence the success of these tours that they're doing. And that's one of the things I heard about. And I know you had the pleasure of going to see the Motley Crue, Poison. Who else is there?
Def Leppard and Joan Jett.
Joan Jett, yeah. So it's great to see that the work that he contributed to this music still stands very strong. And I guess that's my whole point.
Right.
So you asked me my opinion on this, and I gave you a long-winded, but
No,
but
that's why you're here. So now let me, you brought up the reunion tour just then, and I know that there's some people out there that say this is exactly why Motley Crue should have never done a reunion tour. And I'll be honest, if I look back to 2015, I think it was when they, wrapped up last time, I actually thought Motley Crue would be one of those bands that actually stuck to the fact that they would stay retired, in part because of Mick's health. And, that's, no knock on him. I mean, it's amazing what he's done for so many years, but they were also pretty vocal about, hey, it was the four of us and we want to go out, the four of us. Do you think now moving forward, because they just announced the tour overseas for 2023, and obviously now Mick is not going to be there. Do you think it cheapens the fact that they decided to reunite it all?
No, not at all. And let me say, most bands, look, Poison's a rarity, they have all original members,
Sure.
right? But Def Leppard is not, right?
Yeah.
Some
very true.
circumstances because people have passed and whatnot.
Mhm.
You still got 3 out of 4 original members, and Motley Crue. And a body of work is a body of work. And it's important that if you've done something really good or great, or whatever the word you want to say, that if you still have the ability to go out there and perform and make people happy, and at the end of the day, that's what they're doing. Is Mick Mars going to be the greatest draw, and no disrespect, to go and see Motley Crue? Probably not. It's probably going to be.
The casual fan will know, obviously, Vince Neil's voice. They're certainly going to know who Tommy Lee is for all the wrong reasons, in my opinion, but they'll know who Tommy Lee is.
Right.
Yeah, a casual fan who knows maybe some Motley Crue songs may not know who Mick Mars is. And that's no disrespect to Mick and all the things you just said, right? But yeah, to me, the fact they want to continue, that's up to them always. And it's up to the ticket buying public to say either we accept it or we don't. And I have a feeling an overwhelming majority of the public will accept it.
Yeah, and again, if the guitar player is going in and he's playing his parts, you're still kind of celebrating what Mick achieved with the band, So that's kind of how I look at it. And I think it's important, and I think it's important that this is your livelihood. This is their livelihood, and people say, "Oh, they got millions of dollars. They got." Of course, we know they're well off, and but you don't know what it's like. And I know in the smallest sense of what they have, I'm in the 0.0001% of what they've achieved. However, I know when I've gone years without playing for whatever the reasons were, and you get that itch and you have this burning desire inside your heart and your soul to do something that you love. It's not all of a sudden Vince Neil is going to become a plumber. You know what I mean? Right. Like you're gonna go open your door and you're gonna say, these guys, this is what they've done. This is what they love to do. And, I totally get why you would want to carry on. And when you still have basically 3 out of 4 core members, founding members, still alive and still healthy enough to do this, I have no problem with that whatsoever.
Yeah, and I have to think that Mick has, let's assume for this conversation right now for a moment that it is John 5 that's going to replace him.
Right.
I have to assume that Mick has blessed this himself, and I don't know that. I'm making assumptions here. I know that John 5 grew up as a kid and loved Mick Mars's playing. I think he had posters of him on his wall and as a kid, so in a lot of ways, John 5 is the perfect replacement. He's theatrical himself and he fits in with Motley. I know he's a little younger than those guys, but he fits in well. He's a great guitar player himself. So to me, if you have to go this route and replace Mick Mars, and we'll see if John 5 is the guy or not, but to me, it's the perfect guy to fit in. And like you said, it's tough for these guys when this is all they've known for their entire life. Like you said, Vince Neil's not going to be a plumber. And that's where I say I give Mick a ton of credit because let's be honest, chances are he didn't have to tour even this time around, he could have said, hey
Mhm.
guys, look, I'm out, I can't do this.
Mhm.
He probably is not worrying about where his next meal is coming from on the table.
Mhm. Mhm.
He's doing it for the love of the music, and he gave it a shot this time. And this
Mhm.
tour was supposed to happen 2.5 years ago, and the pandemic stopped it. Yet he
Yeah.
still gave it a go this summer. And yeah, I'll have nothing but the utmost respect. Some of the guys in Motley sometimes are a little questionable characters,
Mhm.
whether it's the Vince Neil accident, some of the shenanigans that Tommy Lee pulls, but Mick has always seemed above all of that. And Mick has always seemed to be strictly about the music and nothing else. And yeah, I just utmost respect for what he's attempted to do this year and what he's done for the last couple of decades. And more power to him for plowing through that. I could tell you at 71 years old, there's 0% chance that I'm going to be trying to work and tour the world. I'm hoping to
Mhm.
sit on my couch, lay in my pool, relaxing, not trying
Mhm.
to fight through what he's fighting through to continue working. And let's be honest, playing in the band is his job, but that just says how much he loves it, that he wanted to continue to try to do it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no doubt. And again, you only know when you do what they do or what I do of that burning desire to entertain. And I always say this: think of the crowds they play in front of.
Yep.
I do a gig and I have 10 people in the audience dancing or doing whatever. That's like the biggest thrill for me. I can't
Right.
even imagine what it's like to have a sea of people jumping up, screaming songs, things that you've written. It's got to be an incredible feeling.
Of course.
But the point I'm making is that even at again a very low level, what that feeling is like, knowing what they have achieved, and that fans are loving what they do. I mean, remember, this music went through a very rough period of time in the early
Yes.
'90s, and
Sure
a
did.
lot of these bands, even myself, we always say, would you ever think that 20 years ago that you would have talked to Bruce Kulick? Would you ever think
Yeah.
that you would be, what I mean, all these things we always talk about.
Yep.
Would we have thought in the early '90s that this music would have such a powerful resurgence?
I
I
mean,
didn't really
Molly
think
Crew was
so.
playing clubs in the early mid '90s because
Exactly.
they could
Yeah.
barely draw. Now they're playing
Right.
stadiums.
Right. And it
Yeah.
just goes to show you how powerful popular culture is, and
Sure.
and I'm very, I'm very happy about that, because we said this before. As kids, we were very proud of what we were a part of. Even
Yep.
if it was a very small percentage of, as a fan, as a listener, as a buying.
Oh
But
yeah.
to know that this could still achieve it kind of like, what's the word? Not vindicates. It's um you got to help.
Validates.
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 I knew it rhymed with that word.
You knew it was a V
Everything.
word, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Everything we were proud of as when we were younger, and when we got shit about, oh, you listen to that heavy metal shit, that crap,
Yep.
that devil's music, that okay, you know,
Yeah.
40 years later, it's still going strong,
Oh,
so
absolutely. And
that's
for
great.
me, Motley Crue was, I'll say, the first band I um, found out about on my own. And by that, I mean, I grew up a Kiss fan in the '70s, and a friend of mine had told me about that. Then in like
Hmm.
'81, a friend of mine was like, oh, if you like Kiss, you should listen to Ozzy Osbourne. And he made me an
Hmm.
Ozzy Osbourne cassette, which I still have somewhere. And then in January of '84, I went to see Ozzy. It was my second concert ever. I'd seen Kiss in '79. Now, well, it was my third concert. Kiss in '79, Kiss in '83, Ozzy in January of '84. And opening up for Ozzy was this unknown band, Motley Crue, right? And I had not heard of a single note of them. I didn't know who they were. I was in the seventh row, Nassau Coliseum. I had brought with me a Kodak camera, which, as people remember, had like 12 or 24 pictures on a roll of film. And that was it. It's not like with your phone where you could just keep taking pictures over and over again. And that night, when I saw Motley Crue open up the show, I was so blown away with their performance that I
Mm.
used, I think it was 3 of my 24 photos on this completely unknown band to take a couple of pictures of it, because I was like, wow, this band is incredible. This band is going to probably be somebody someday. And I want to have pictures of this show that I was at in January of '84. And then literally within a week or two, I went out and bought Shout at the Devil. Then, oh, wait, they have another album, Too Fast for Love. And I bought that as well. So for me, Motley Crue was probably that first band that I found on my own. And by that, I mean, no friend told me, hey, you should listen to this. And it was just, I'll never forget that night seeing them. And, Mick
Mm.
was a part of that sound and a part of that image and a part of all of that. And, Motley Crue was probably never my top 3 or 4 bands, even though I just said they were the first one I kind of found on my own. But I always, all through the 80s, I loved Motley Crue. And, it's kind of sad, but I'm happy for him that he's going out on his terms and he's not going to continue to push to do something that's going to, maybe even jeopardize. I read somewhere he's actually lost through the years 3 inches in height from this disease. I mean, think about that.
Yeah.
Hey, that's nuts. That's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And maybe I know a couple of years ago, he's working on a new solo album with John Corabi, and maybe this will give him the opportunity now to finish that album, get that out. I'm kind of excited to hear what that will sound like. I know a lot of people love that Motley 94 album. So it'll be interesting to hear what that sounds like. And, maybe it'll also just give him some time to rest and relax, which he has absolutely earned at this point of his life.
I totally agree. Absolutely.
So it's been interesting. Also, I'll just close on this. I posted on it last night on my Facebook page, and there's literally thousands of comments. It's unbelievable how much love, and it's all pretty much 99% is all love towards Mick. You have a few people saying, hey, Motley Crue should not have come back after the reunion, and now this should make them stop. But it's just amazing the love and outpouring that people have and the appreciation people have for what he's done, and how many people, like you said before, say how underrated he is as a guitar player. I'm glad you brought that up, because it's making me think about, in the 80s, you had all the Eddie Van Halens, and you had the Steve Vais, and you had, the George Lynches, and even Vito Brato, all like that tapping on the neck, all that style. And Mick was unlike any of those guys, and yet still was right up there and arguably one of the biggest bands of the decade. So kudos to him.
Absolutely. Totally agree.
Excellent. Well, they just announced those dates in 2023. If you're overseas and going to those shows, obviously it sounds like it's not going to be Mick playing those shows. We'll look for an official announcement. I've been talking about John 5 taking his place, but there's no official announcement on that. Anything else, Bud, you want to say before we wrap this up?
No, I think all I needed to say about this, and again, we always say, and this is a positive thing, because like I say, he has in the past, go see the band, celebrate the band's existence, that they could still go out there and tour.
Yep.
Go listen to the records, listen to the stuff that you maybe flew under the radar, that you didn't realize, like this guy's, his playing and his contribution to this body of work and this genre of music. So
yep, absolutely. And I'm glad I got to see him this summer, so that was obviously unknown to me, my last time seeing Mick perform. And who knows, maybe he'll jump up on stage here or there for a song. He has not said that, but you never know. They could be out in California. He'll say, I'll get up on stage and play Girls, Girls, Girls tonight with the guys. I'm sure he knows it in his sleep. So hopefully this isn't the last we've seen of him on stage, but if it is, I'll just close by saying, Mick, thank you for all those memories. You've earned this retirement at this point, and we'll look for your solo album and for anything else you may do. And they alluded that Motley may record again. So, this won't be the last we hear from Mick. It sounds like on a record, maybe just the last we see him perform.
Absolutely. Yep.
So on that note, everybody, we look forward to seeing and reading your comments. What do you think? What were your thoughts about Mick retiring here? We look forward to hearing and seeing what you have to say. Buddy, as always, it's a pleasure.
Always a pleasure.
And you know how we're going to end.
Yeah.
Double Ringo.
Yeah.
Flying Ringo. All righty.
Rabbit ears Ringo.
All right. On that note, maybe we should have done the devil horns for this one.
Yeah.
All right, there you go. All righty. On that note, everybody, thanks for watching. Talk to you guys soon. All righty. There you have it. I'd like to thank everybody for watching and listening. We'd also love to hear your thoughts and your comments about what you thought when you heard that officially Mick Mars was not going to be touring with Motley Crue any longer. Of course, we'll be excited to hear some new music coming from him in the future. We'd like to hear your thoughts about the official announcement that he's no longer playing with Motley Crue in concert. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit that subscribe button below. If you're listening to one of my podcasts, subscribe over there as well. Also, head on over to Facebook and follow my page, The Rock Experience with Mike Brunn, where each and every day we talk about all the rock and roll music that you love. You could also follow me on Instagram and Twitter as well. That's it for this episode. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. See you next time, everybody.